Dozens of bodies stored in U-Haul trucks.
The record-shattering 6.6 million Americans filed for unemployment benefits last week.
The coronavirus outbreak is, according to health experts, far from over.
Headline after headline. On your TV, on your phone, in the paper, it's doom and gloom 24/7. You don't want to keep reading and watching, but you can't stop. And let's be honest, it's taking an emotional toll.
It got to a point where watching the news was giving, me personally, a lot of anxiety.
My wife asks me every morning how many people died in New York City. It's just very upsetting. I'm 81, so I'm a prime candidate for this being my last illness if I ever contract it.
I think that you walk a fine line of, if you watch the news all the time and you're obsessing over it, then I think that that's really going to affect me on a deeper level, which would, of course, my kids would feed off of that.
Even when you try to step away from all the noise, it's so easy to get sucked right back in, and sometimes lose hope in the process. Especially when you're scrolling through your phone and you see headlines like, "There's no plan to return to normal," or "The way we travel will never be the same again," and "Shocking study theorizes compelling mutated coronavirus origins." It can just be too much.
People will forward articles, forward information just because of the headline, and then you say, okay, but did you read the whole thing? Did you get a little bit further down to see what that even means? And a lot of people don't.
Maria Sosa is a therapist, so she knows a lot about how people deal with bad news and stress. And she's seeing the impact that these kinds of headlines are having on our mental and our physical health.
Language is so important, and it really shapes our reality and how our body perceives a situation as well. We're hearing the words death, and now that we're hearing the words shocking and, very strong language, all that gets passed down from our conscious to unconscious to our bodies.
But is all the hyperbole really necessary? Can't we, the media, just give you the facts? Does every headline need to be shocking, unbelievable, and something you won't believe until you see it? Should we, as journalists, be more careful about the words we use in our headlines and stories? Is the doom and gloom language really necessary if it's affecting our hope and resilience when we need it most?
I don't know if we could make the news more emotionally healthy. I think that the psychiatry profession would probably like us to, and there's a lot of challenges to doing that.
Callie McBride is the Senior Vice President at the Poynter Institute, a journalism, education, and strategy center, and she's also a public editor at NPR.
Since the internet, the adage is to overstate everything and to make every headline super emotional, because what we know from social media is that people react to emotion, not information. And people remember what they feel, not what they know. So we have developed this habit in journalism of scaring people or exciting people or alarming people or making them really happy simply because that's what works on the internet. And you don't want to create information that nobody consumes. That's a really bad idea. And so it's sort of a survival technique in journalism right now to play off emotion almost to a fault.
And in some cases, Callie says that emotional or bold language is actually necessary to get an important message across.
If I tell you what it's like to be an emergency room physician, and I don't allow the emotion into that story, the anxiety and the stress and the disillusionment and the depressing nature of it, I'm doing you a disservice in my audience. So we really do have to account for emotion in a responsible, appropriate way in journalism.
So McBride says this kind of hyperbolic language flat out works. And that means you're likely to see a lot more of it as the pandemic plows along. But Sosa, the therapist, says there's an easy fix. Give yourself a break. limit how much news you watch and read, and maybe skip that article about the murder hornets.
We have no control over the uncertainty. We have no control over how long this is going to last and how the world is going to change. And so that lack of control is really difficult for us, and it creates trauma also for our bodies.
The key, I think, is to give people information that helps them see how they can either process the information, act on it, or how the system could make things better.
I've tried to avoid reading and in tuning in stories that are just oh, where do we go now? What's gonna happen now? It's never gonna be the same, different things like that, because we don't know.
I've discovered Netflix, and I used to think binge watching was a kind of a silly terminology, but I think I've watched 20 series since this thing occurred.
Experimenting with new recipes in the kitchen and playing with my dog Pippa have helped me when I need a break from the news sometimes. What has worked for you? Have you been able to take a step away? And what kinds of stories do you want to see us do more of here at LX? Comment below, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel at NBCLX.